I want to chat with you about intuitive eating, what it isn't and what it is. So, you may have heard of intuitive eating before, and it might be thrown around a lot without any explanation of what intuitive eating really is, because a lot of people have a misconception that intuitive eating is someone eating whatever they want, whenever they want, however much they want, just for the lack of a better term, a free for all, where that is not what intuitive eating is. Intuitive eating is actually a process of relearning your body's innate biological, physiological, even hunger and fullness cues. What intuitive eating does, it's based on 10 principles. There are 10 principles to intuitive eating to help you to become or find your inner intuitive eater again. And what those principles do is they either help you to develop more interoceptive sensitivity or remove blocks to interoceptive sensitivity. So interoceptive sensitivity is so cool. When I learned about this, I was fascinated and was like, oh my gosh, I want to tell everyone about it. But that just might be me because I am a nerd. What it is your ability to be able to tune into the sensations that are arising from within your body. So this one study showed this example of testing someone's interoceptive sensitivities. What they would do, they would just sit in silence and they would try to count their heart rate, their beats per minute of their heart, without touching or anything with their body, like not even putting your hand on, but just to be able to tune into your body's like inner sensations and see if you can guess or like count your heartbeat just by tuning in to your body. And somebody who was very close with their ability to be able to be accurate in what their heart rate was, they have really great interoceptive sensitivity. So it's that ability to be in tune with those sensations that arise from within our bodies. And then there's also interoceptive responsivity. So for example, you might feel like that your bladder gets full and you need to go to the bathroom, and then you respond by going to the bathroom rather than just like peeing your pants. So it could also be like you're sensitive to hearing someone like knock on your door, but you don't go and answer it. And so what happens when we diet or we follow these external rules or these food rules that diet culture or diets tell us, like we can only eat this time, we can only eat these foods, we can't eat these foods, is it blocks and disconnects us from our ability to be able to truly tune into and listen to and hear what our body's inner sensations are. We completely lose our ability to intuitive eat, or our relationship with our inner intuitive eater. So what intuitive eating, these 10 principles that are in intuitive eating do is to increase your interoceptive sensitivity, and then also remove blocks to your interoceptive sensitivity. And so also something that's really cool about intuitive eating is a whole person approach to having a healthy relationship with food, because it's a mind, body, and even emotional, if you will, approach. It's a whole person approach, because for example, with intuitive eating, we're not only trying to listen to our body's physiological, biological hunger cues of like, okay, my body is hungry, I need to eat something, but we're also using our rational brain and thinking like, okay, like what foods do I have available at home to be able to cook for dinner? But then it's also in a way using like our emotional brain and asking ourselves like, what sounds good? Like what would be really satisfying right now? Because those things are all important when it comes to eating and our relationship with food, to knit all three of those things together. Our body, I would say like our limbic brain, our rational brain, and our emotional brain, all those things tie together. Our body's drive towards needing to eat because our body needs to be fed, but then also a rational brain of like making conscious choices about what to eat and what's available. Do I want to go home and get something to eat, or do I want to go and get something from fast food because it's faster? But then also emotional reasons like, oh, like going enjoying a great meal with friends for their birthday, or my birthday would be so fun. Or there's the emotional aspect of, you know what, it's probably, I'd probably feel better in my body if I were to go home and cook my food versus eating something that's really greasy that I don't possibly like want to have. So there's so many different things that go into our food choices. It's not just these rules and these external arbitrary things that are telling us what to do or what not to do. So with the 10 principles of intuitive eating, like I mentioned, they either help to increase your level of interoceptive sensitivity and then remove blocks to interoceptive sensitivity. And so some of the things to help you to increase your interoceptive sensitivity, the first principle is to reject the diet mentality. And this one was huge for me when I was healing my relationship with food. Is to just literally, I had to tell myself all the time, like, Sharissa, you're not dieting anymore. Sharissa, you're not dieting anymore. Sharissa, you're not dieting anymore. Like when I would come to food and thinking about what should I eat, how much should I eat, it was like, Sharissa, your body needs to be biologically fed. So eat enough food to be biologically fed. But that's even getting into the second principle. Anyway, rejecting all of the thoughts of like that I needed to diet, that I need to make my body smaller. My new mantra needed to be, you're not dieting anymore, your body needs to be fed. But then principle number 2 is honoring your hunger. So when you get hungry, to eat. When you feel and you start to like realize you get hungry, to eat. Like that first sign of getting hungry, eat. It's okay to eat. And then another principle is honoring or feeling your fullness. I learned in the book of intuitive eating that there's so many times that we have faked our fullness because we're afraid of eating too much. But faking our fullness only leads us to be more hungry down the road, which then might possibly lead us into overeating. So like, eat until fullness. That's something I still have to remind myself, that I don't diet anymore and I can eat until I'm full. And that might mean more food than I typically was used to eating in order to actually truly be like full. And part of that is practicing learning like what level of fullness is actually full for me and for my body. It's on this scale of like if you're like 0 to 100%, but like maybe eating until like 80, 90 to 100, we probably don't want to eat until we're 110% full, because we're not going to feel very good in our bodies. But possibly eating until that 90, 95% full, where you're like just on that, like you're comfortably full, where you'd be able to go out for a walk and not feel comfortable, but not like this 70% full where you're like, I'm still like hungry, like I'm still thinking about food because like I didn't actually feel my fullness. I didn't actually like honor my body's hunger and need for calories. And so those are some of the principles, but then there's also principles of like finding the satisfaction factor. This one was so fun for me in healing my relationship with food because there's it's actually like a combination. So there's finding the satisfaction factor, but then rejecting the food or fighting the food police. And so like food rules that tell you like you shouldn't have this or XYZ, paired with finding satisfaction. So for example, I had food rules of like fat was bad, I shouldn't have fat, so I didn't have things like peanut butters or full fat yogurts or things like that. I wasn't more or less never really afraid of carbohydrates, but it was fats that I had like a lot of rules against. And so being able to like refine my love for like butter and full fat yogurts and even incorporating more nuts into my diet. But then something that's also super cool is a food that I used to overeat often was peanut butter, just like spoonfuls of peanut butter, where now that let's say like my eating behaviors have like normalized and leveled out, I've actually realized that I don't really even like peanut butter at all, and I actually don't feel very good when I eat peanut butter. I get like a weird headache. I don't know if it's some sort of intolerance that my body has, but sometimes we don't even realize when we're in the mess of having an unhealthy relationship with food and our behaviors are literally chaotic and all over the place with food. We don't even realize what foods that we like go to and overeat on that we actually don't even like and that don't even make us feel good. But once everything normals out and levels out, you're able to discern those things. But then other and also with like dieting, like food is never like, it's always boring and bland, where like having satisfaction in your food matters. Like truly enjoying your food and eating good food is okay. God wouldn't have made food taste good to us if we weren't to enjoy it in some way. But then there's also principles, like for example, there's all these principles in the beginning that are helping you heal your relationship with food: rejecting the diet mentality, honoring your hunger, feeling your fullness, getting rid of the food police, finding satisfaction. But then there's also principles that are, well, for example, at the very end, the very last, the 10th principle is gentle nutrition, honoring your body with gentle nutrition. And all of the rest of the principles, you can kind of, you don't necessarily have to start at number one, which I do kind of recommend working your way through the principles and the book. It is kind of a good process, but gentle nutrition is at the very end, because we can't worry about nutrition and like the health, etc., of food until we have like a healthy, normal relationship with food first and foremost. I am a huge believer that a healthy relationship with food, or even like mental and emotional health with like food, body, and fitness, comes first before even thinking about, honestly, the health aspect. But it can come, like for example, I'm in a place now where I can think about nutrition and I can make choices based on like, oh, like getting nutrients in my diet. But you have to go through this other process and really heal your relationship with food first before you can do that. For example, remember in the beginning thinking, worrying about, oh my gosh, am I getting enough protein? Where I had to keep letting that stuff go, because I needed to be able to just have more or less like food freedom before I could even start to think about like the health and the nutrition of food. And then there is also a principle in there which is movement, feeling the difference. It's forgetting militant exercise and moving your body, and it's forgetting also the calorie burning effects of movement and just moving to feel good in your body. The book Intuitive Eating doesn't actually talk about this concept of intuitive movement, but I would say that is something I practice now. I don't, let's say, follow any specific form of like movement or workouts, but I do practice intuitive movement in that, I try to have a bare minimum of how much I move my body during the week, like 3 to 4 times, but it's going to vary on like what day it is, what time of day it is, what sort of movement I do that day, how intense that movement is, and even how long that movement is. I really have learned to like be able to listen to my body and decide on like, what does my body need today? I kind of feel like I'm going to and doing this, and I feel like this would be good for my body today. So that's something that I have practiced, but I did have to reject this idea of that movement was for burning calories. For me, movement is feeling good in my body. It's for feeling strong, but it's also for improving my mood and helping me to feel better. It's also, for stewarding my body, but it doesn't have to be militant or rigid. So that is just a little bit about intuitive eating. The book Intuitive Eating is amazing. It was so helpful for me to learn about how dieting in and of itself is the thing that causes us to have these unhealthy behaviors with food and eating, and even body, and even fitness. So I highly recommend reading it, but I hope this was helpful to help you understand what intuitive eating isn't and what intuitive eating is, because with that concept of you can eat whatever you want, whenever you want, however much you want, like you truly, like that in a way wouldn't be intuitive, because if you were doing that, you would not feel good in your body, because you would probably feel stuffed all the time. Like you don't want to feel it's about like honoring and listening and respecting to your body and also your whole person as well. But intuitive eating is awesome, and I do more or less practice. I definitely follow intuitive eating because I am of the mindset that I do not diet anymore, but there are like skills and practices and habits and behaviors of, let's say, my nutrition coaching certification that I do think that are really valuable and that would be beneficial to all people. Like for example, like having some sort of discipline and weekly routine to like buy groceries and to have meals, to make some food at your house, because eating it at home and being able to like make like good choices is going to help you to feel better as a whole. Constantly eating out all the time, you're not going to feel very good. You might have to work on healing your relationship with food first before you get to be able to practice those things. But I would say now I'm able to in a way balance both intuitive eating, but then also having like just having some sort of discipline where I like go to the store weekly, I get groceries to make sure I have food for breakfast, lunch, and dinner at my house. And but it's balanced in that like I get foods that are fun, I get foods that I think are going to be enjoyable. I love going to Trader Joe's and getting some of their fun snacks, specifically right now where there's everything pumpkin is in. So getting pumpkin muffins and pumpkin chips and who knows what else that they have right now. So it's this combination of, you know, making good choices, being intentional and mindful with our choices, but then also having food freedom. I'm not going to create rules. If I feel like having something like ravioli, I love ravioli, I'm going to have ravioli, but I do try to practice some semblance of balance. But anyway, hope this video was helpful to help you understand. And so if you're someone who wants to improve your relationship with food, to have food freedom, to even improve your relationship with your body and or fitness, reading the book Intuitive Eating is super helpful. You can also reach out to me if you have any questions.